Let's see what this is all about.
The paper that I want to give this morning, this afternoon, is something that's come out of some work that I've been doing recently on French philosopher of technology called Bernard Stiegler. The paper itself is The Politics of Stupidity, Reflection and Desire in Stiegler's Critique of the Information Economy. I think the best thing to do is perhaps preface the paper with a few remarks about what exactly the information economy is from Stiegler's perspective. One of the things that
I don't know what we're looking at either.
On the evolution of industrial democracies is the idea that there's a convergence between information technologies and what we might call virtual aesthetic technologies. There's an idea that the way in which the world is staged by what Adorno called culture industries, that is the way it is configured through aesthetic media like film, is increasingly informed by an idea that these media of representation are based upon a calculation of the kind of responses they can elicit from us, the kind of responses they can elicit from the masses, which will induce a kind of performativity. One of the things that he's interested in is looking at the way in which aesthetic representation and information technologies come together to form a system in which performativity is constantly encouraged and expanded amongst human beings. And that, of course, is something which is very close to what is the central idea of his philosophy, which is the idea of originary technicity, the notion that human beings are fated to exist within a system of technological supplementation. That what we are is originally technological beings in the sense that we have never been in a state of nature, that consciousness is in some sense always co-present with and co-eval with its technological supplementations. From the most primitive things like sharp-edged flint tools, all the way up to the kind of mnemonic technologies that supplement our understanding of time and that supplement our understanding of the way in which the world is organised around us. All right, so in essence what I want to do is to use this paper as an exposition of his idea, Stiegler's idea of originary technicity. I also want to explore something which is perhaps the core of his later works on democracy and the fate of democracy, and that is the idea of a politics of stupidity. His idea is, or the concept that he tries to put forward, is that the media saturation that has been enabled by new media technologies has now become so pervasive that it kind of wires us into a system of stimulus and response that has more or less killed what he calls noesis, an idea of moral reflection on the world around us. The idea is that these systems of virtual representation provide us with a kind of spontaneous history, which doesn't encourage us to reflect, but actually just kind of situates us in spontaneous history which is generated by them. A history which has a sense of historical time, and a history which doesn't promote any kind of predictive.
It sounds like bullshit to me.
So the paper itself then is in, four parts. The first part is a brief consideration of Stiegler's work on the relationship between virtual and information technologies and the process of capitalization. All right, so I mean, one of the things about Stiegler's work is that he's interested in the Frankfurt School. He's interested in the kind of linkage between rationalization, technology, and capitalization that's presented in Dorner's work. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Secondly, I want to set up a clarification of Stiegler's work on the relationship between
Hurry up.
and the politics of stupidity. All right, he has a particular notion of what stupidity is and what the politics of stupidity is, and I'll say a little bit about that. I want to make some remarks on the relationship between political economy of spirit that Stiegler develops in his later work and the manifesto of the organisation which he started called Ars Industrialis, or industrial art, and what the function of art is, what the kind of political, provocative function of art is in industrial societies. I just want to say a little bit about that. I want to finish off by looking at some consideration of what the provocation of art is in industrial societies, what it can actually do to perform a political function. One of the great themes of his work is that what has been induced in modern society is a crisis of sensibility. One of the things that constitutes a republic is a kind of affective, feeling engagement of individuals with their community. Part of the republic, the idea of a citizenry in a republic, is this idea of an informed, intelligent sensibility, which for him, culture industries have gone along, or programming industries have gone a long way to destroying. And so I want to say a little bit about the relationship between art and the attempt to kind of revitalise that sensibility. Okay, so let's kick off then by looking at saying a little bit about Stiegler's relationship to Marx and his attempt to reconstitute a critique of political economy. There's a little book that he wrote in 2010, which he called For a New Critique of Political Economy. And in a sense, what the book is an attempt to revitalise and reconstitute Marx's critique of political economy, but to do it in a very particular way. And I'll just briefly make some remarks on what that is. The essence of capitalism for Marx, is what he called the MCM relationship. What he called the MCM relationship. So the money, commodity, money relationship. So the money is invested in commodities which are produced in order to make profit, that is, make money. And An important thing for Stiegler is that the production of commodities comes through a particular kind of technology in Marx. And the particular kind of technology that Marx talks about are heavy industrial technologies. All right? And what Stiegler wants to say about Marx and Marx's construction of the MCM relationship is that actually he's right, or he would be right about the historical fate of capitalism if the production of commodities were always to be tied to heavy industrial production. So, if it was the case that machines did not evolve, and if it was the case that all we have were machines that were these kind of heavy industrialized machines that are simply about increasing the speed at which commodities are produced, then the crises of overproduction and underconsumption, which he predicted, would actually mark the death knell of capitalism. But what Stiegler's point is that this crisis of overproduction and underconsumption doesn't come about because technology evolves. And it evolves into things like media technologies, like film, TV, etc. Right? It evolves into technologies which transform the idea of capitalization. They transform the idea of what constitutes a commodity. Now, obviously, the precursor, or the first attempts to kind of quantify this technological transformation of the NCM relationship, comes in the form of the Frankfurt School. And what's interesting about Stiegler is that he's actively engaged with the Frankfurt School critique of capitalism, in the sense that he sees Adorno's culture industry thesis as anticipating this kind of crisis of culture that we talked about at the start of the talk. What we get with the Frankfurt School is this idea of a bewitching of desire by film and television, the kind of stereotypical icons that we seem to live up to, the way in which our imagination becomes bewitched by the culture industry, and which is cashed out in these forms of consumption that we compulsively pursue in large-scale mass capitalist society. Now,
Okay. There's the basic problem with this kind of argumentation is that it presumes a we, a collective that possesses traits or displays behavior as a group that is meaningful in a predictive fashion. So when he says that this guy whose paper he's talking about, Stiegler, Marx would have been right if technology didn't evolve. Well, no, still wouldn't have been right, because people exist as individuals as well as members of society. And as an individual, I might have an idea I want to pursue. I might have some industriousness that I want to engage in. And that's why any critique of capitalism always fails. Because a critique of capitalism is a critique of the individual's ability and right to do as he sees fit with his resources, including using them to make more resources for himself. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. So, it's like these individuals in the university, like Dr. Ross Abbinnett, he's not really doing anything. He doesn't have a real job because he's just all of this nonsense is built on one fundamental failure of cognition, namely a reification fallacy, treating a non-agent as though it were an agent and expecting to be able to go back and forth between agents and non-agents and not lose meaning in the conversion process. It doesn't work like that. If you're trying to say that Marx was right about the overproduction under consumption predicament that humans would have faced, except for the fact technology evolved. Well, that's making a mistake thinking that humans are necessarily unable to adapt to realities and adjust accordingly. Capitalism says let them do that. Let them understand the reality as it is, adapt, adjust accordingly, and try to succeed, compete. The thing about competition is it's not even exactly competition. It's competition for being useful. It's a competition in being useful to other people. So if my business is competing against another business to sell food to you, it's a competition to see who can provide better food and service, better prices to entice the consumer and to come and spend their money there. That's what keeps getting missed in all of this left critical theory shit, is the individual. It keeps getting forgotten about completely. That there is no action, but that individuals take that action. There is no moral obligation, but that individuals possess that moral obligation. There is no macroeconomics, except that individuals engage in individual acts of commerce. It's an inability to see the trees for the forest. And an inability to understand that you can't cut down all the trees to fix the forest. You know, the forest may be unfair to the bunnies, who are preyed upon by everything and prey upon nothing but grass. But if you try to fix it so that the bunnies don't get eaten, then all of a sudden you got a bunch of starving wolves. And if you try to fix it so the wolves don't get starving, then all of a sudden you've got a population problem because you're feeding the wolves. And none of the natural integrity of the system can be allowed to impact things positively. So, Dr. Ross Abbinnett, your PhD, I'll use it for toilet paper in the morning. You're just another one of these crazy metaphor-hugging fools. Metaphor-hugging fool, I say. Metaphor-hugging fool.